Hello, it's October 2023, and over the many years I've highlighted that there are many whistleblowers, exposers, people fighting for freedom you've never heard of. I'm just going to segue for a moment here. You really have to wonder about the people that, for example, as an overall descriptive, the alternative people, the alternative types, put on pedestals. Why aren't they silenced? Why do you hear about them? Anyway, I digress. And I've said there's many people just like myself who've sacrificed literally everything, not for any personal gain, but hopefully to benefit everyone else. And I've really tried to highlight and stress to the truther types and the freedom types that you have to learn to walk before you can run. And I've highlighted, for example, how people think that they're doing something, but they're actually part of the plan, making things worse. And that's a hard pill for people to swallow, because they think they're doing the right thing, they believe they're doing the right thing, they're emotionally attached, thinking all these things. And you can't get through to them. And as I've said, and this is no disrespect to anyone, but there are NPC types on all sides of any argument. I even highlighted in my last video, for example, one of my recent videos, where the social justice mindset is in all camps. And if you don't say what people want to say, want to hear, on any side, then you're erased. You're canceled. And that's sad. But going back to people who have and still are coming out, trying to do their part, and why I keep emphasizing you have to learn to walk before you can learn to run, because it's these little injustices that set the stage for, as a descriptive, an overall tyranny. But people are just ignoring all that. Now, how many people have stood up for injustice, even with one person? If you can't do that, then you're not changing the world. And I've highlighted in recent videos, why would you want to try to salvage this world? We are in such social decay, morally, spiritually, physically, with the foods, the things overall that go into our bodies, everything. But again, I digress. And it's not only, for example, this past decade plus that I've had people reach out to me, formerly in various positions of authority, former police detectives, political type people, elite type of people, all sorts of people coming to me. I remember a story, I'm trying to remember, it was the early 2000s, and there was an individual who went public with, and it may seem trivial, but again, you have to remember, it's all these little things that set a solid foundation for overall tyranny. And he had got his hands on studies with regards to POAs, and I'm just going to leave it at that. And what he found was, for example, under highway traffic acts, this is everywhere, they've done extensive studies what speeds people are comfortable driving at. They were like blind studies. And what they did, and I'm skimming over a lot of details, is that speed limits are deliberately set 20 kilometers below the speed limit. And this is also for people in the United States in miles. They set the speed limit below. That way people, when they're driving, not that they're not paying attention, but just casually driving, minding their own business, they will speed. Now, there's going to be a lot of people who are saying, well, yeah, that's still good. We're, keeping the road safe. No. When you look at, for example, anything under the POA, any tickets or anything else, setting aside for a moment how everything is constructed for people to make a mistake, and that is the whole point with this part, is profiting on people making mistakes. And again, there's going to be most people going, oh, well, that's good, you shouldn't make a mistake. Well, the world is not a safe place, and people make mistakes, and 99% of the mistakes that are made, there's no harm. And that gets into the whole ideology from these free man types with victimless crimes. But anyway, I'm digressing with that. So anyway, going back to this guy, he decided to go public. And back then, the internet was basically like the Wild West, as we're told. And he was putting it online. Now, I did, prior to all that, seen the reports for myself, read through everything, and I just remember thinking to myself, wow, this you have to keep your mouth shut about. He decided to go public, and it destroyed his career. I know personally that it destroyed his career, because afterwards he had contacted me, and I ended up taking half his client list. And I can't remember what ended up happening to him afterwards, but definitely he wasn't working within the legal community, anything to do with law. And that's an example of someone that you'd never even heard of, and I even forgot his name, sadly. And that's an example of someone a long time ago who had come out and tried to help people and get the truth out, but no one cared. And his online presence, for whatever it was worth, no one really cared. No one even knows. I bet you don't even know what I just told you, because it's all suppressed. And it's sad. And there's countless of people. I've even talked to a former firefighter, for example, and learning about as a descriptive corruption within that, and I couldn't believe it. It was just, really? How could that be so? But anyway, I'm not talking about that right now. And then I started looking back on my law career, and I've been really thinking about the whole structure of it, and how, for example, logical fallacies play a role in law. People think that law, it's something magical, mystical, it's bulletproof, whatever, but it's not. I remember talking to many people throughout my career then, whether they were working in the courts or in practice, colleagues like myself, and everyone said the same thing, that if people only knew how dysfunctional it was and how it's amazing anything gets done, people would just be shattered. The whole delusion of the system would be just gone. And these are the types of things that we would all joke about. And I've mentioned that I've had friends that were or either are police officers or retired or whatever, and we all said the same thing. But you have to maintain public image, and that's paramount. And that ties into both the logical fallacies and maintaining public image, a positive public image, with my story. And even on a larger scale, for the city of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and the province of Alberta. Because the information that I've been trying to share and get out exposes all that. And I'm just going to reiterate how it's these types of injustices that set a solid, indestructible foundation for bigger tyrannies. And people don't care. People don't care until it happens to them. And this is why we see, for example, the minority of people who are opposing, for example, the things that have been being imposed the past 3 years. And they think, oh, we've made headway. And, it's interesting even how people can't even agree what, for example, the convoy accomplished. I ask a simple question and people come up with a million different answers. Probably the answer that comes closest to the truth is, well, it brought everyone together, sure. It's still a minority of the overall population around the world. And I've highlighted even recently how people who want things being imposed are protesting for it and even winning in court, but whatever. And these people who think that they're doing something, they can't see the damage that they're part of the plan. Because whoever's imposing everything has long anticipated resistance. So there's flavors of Kool-Aid for everyone. That's not what this is about. But people like myself who have sacrificed everything, unheard of. And again, I'm going to say that I'm just simply the person with the biggest mouth that keeps going on, keeping the truth alive. And I don't know about other people that, like myself, if they're doing the same thing. I haven't heard or seen anything from them. I would assume that a lot of them just gave up. They had a lot of things to worry about. For example, family and whatever. Others have tried. And then I look back to my story again, how the province of Alberta, the health services that overlooks the province, how they were implicated by funding this nonprofit organization. And to have that exposed and not silenced, well, that would lose public trust. And then that all segued into the two former officers who admitted during the trial of my alleged obstruction and alleged assaulting a police officer why they beat me as they did and crippled me. And that's omitted from the trial transcripts. I'm just going to pause here for a moment. There's an old case that used to be relied on, R versus Ascoff, where it had to do with Section 11B of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms here in Canada to be tried within a reasonable time. And back then, I'm trying to remember now, I think it was like 12 months, but there was a ruling that replaced that, R versus Jordan. And that Supreme Court ruling stated 18 months for summary offenses, and if I'm not mistaken, 32 months for indictable offenses. Now, a summary offense would be like a misdemeanor in the United States, and indictable would be like something more serious, like armed robbery, rape, murder, stuff like that. My trial lasted about 49 months. It was once I took over after firing my first 2 lawyers, and my post-traumatic stress was still weighing heavy on me, but I had no choice. And that's why I tell people, you can't rely on others. For example, if you are trying to fight for truth, justice, whatever, you can only rely on yourself. But anyway. And I was reflecting recently about the plethora of logical fallacies used so they can put their minds at ease on wrongfully convicting me and sending me to jail. Again, all that happened because I started to open my mouth. I went through all the proper steps and channels with that, and then I thought it was all in confidence by talking with the governing body for the health of Alberta, and it got leaked out, and then it started causing problems for me. I even went through all the proper channels, for example, with regards to the trial of these 2 false charges. I filed complaints, I made calls, I first tried to contact everyone involved, whether it be the judge, the Crown, the lawyers I talked to, the first 2 that I had, and I went through all proper channels, and no one cared. And knowing what they were saying about me, for example, with that so-called profiler for the Calgary police, if that's what they were being told, then yeah, I was completely discredited, canceled. And then with the interference, political interference by a now former lawyer, former senior counsel for a governing body, that's political interference. I knew I had no chance, so I really had to go public with everything that I knew and everything that was happening to me with the legal system there. I didn't want to be that guy, and in fact, I've shared this story before, might as well reiterate it. I remember where I was staying at the time, this guy kept showing up to the door, wanted to talk, but he'd always show up when I wasn't there. So one day I was there, and I seen this person come up, and I asked my friend, is that the person? Yep. And we went for a drive, talked about nothing, took me out in the middle of nowhere. I'm thinking, okay, I don't know what's going to happen here. On the way back, they said, so what's your story? So I said, I remember saying, well, I'm pretty sure you already know. Never met this person. And by the time we got back, they said, keep doing what you're doing. You're the first person in the history of the city basically to do, to go the distance and everything else. And I remember my reply was, I don't want to be that guy. I just want my life back. I had, and I still don't have any grand illusions of saving the world or changing anything or even accomplishing anything. Everything then just snowballed from my learning about this, what was happening at this organization, to my telling various people in that governing body for the health of the province getting leaked out, and things just started building up to a false accusation by one of the females involved in that, and which even the evening where I was brutally beaten, it was almost like a military takedown of me by these two. They were on a mission, and that evening that female said no, it wasn't her. She heard rumors of it being someone else, and so everything just went sideways for everyone. But if those two didn't do what they did, then I wouldn't have been living a nightmare all these years and being where I am now. But we have that white knight social justice mindset on a mission to silence me, and whatever was going on in their heads, I don't know. Only they know. But I never set out to be a hero. Part of it was meeting with the female to vindicate myself, because up until that time I had no idea what was going on. The other part was to gather information about what was happening there. A lot of people are talking about, there's, this sex trafficking and all this children stuff and everything else. But no one wonders, well, how come the information that I provided and everything that I've stated about my story, I've supported with a plethora of independent evidence. No one's questioning, well, why is there nothing heard about it? Because the people ultimately behind all this, putting aside their localized government there and the provincial government, very influential people that are untouchable are involved. This is like Hollywood couldn't write my story better. But going back to the whole logical fallacies and everything else, over the years, watching all these logical fallacies, lies, and everything being omitted, key things being omitted from the trial transcripts and everything else, and then looking back on my career and looking back at law overall, you really start to get a picture, an idea of, as a descriptive, how fragile everything is and how everything is just made up. When you look at, for example, more than 70% of people convicted of anything are innocent, and that ties into roughly the same percentage of accusations, primarily against men, being false accusations, which goes against the feminist narrative. But I digress. And we see these logical fallacies every day, especially within social justice movements. And you could be on the same side on one topic but be divided on another. Okay, so at best you might unite for that one topic, but then eventually either that topic is resolved or over time it divides. It's a very clever strategy. So we see logical fallacies even in everyday life, just talking to people. And you can watch online these videos of people asking questions about especially very sensitive topics, today's nonsensical, politically correct world. And people can't come up with answers, and they use logical fallacies. And one of the biggest ones that stand out for me is the appeal to extremism. And we see this in law, going right back to speed limits, well, people die, and that for the handful of times that does happen. Another little piece of tidbit that a lot of people don't know is that most accidents occur at or below the speed limit. Yes, fatal, and what's some might even say is worse, being disabled from that. We don't hear about that because logical fallacies, basically law, politics, and in people's everyday lives. And that's what makes talking with majority of the people frustrating, because they're not presenting an argument that they can support, and just having to deal with logical fallacies. And all you can do is just put your hands up and walk away. And that goes for the alternative types too, the truther types or freedom types. They all deal with logical fallacies, everyone. And the biggest one I've noticed is appeal to extremism, because that 0.1% out of a billion chance of something, for example, happening, well, hey, as long as it's possible and probable, it's justifiable, and there you go. So just to sum everything up here, I just really want to share some information, share a story of someone that I knew, which the information I had seen myself, so firsthand, and really emphasize there are real people truly trying to fight as a descriptive overall tyranny. And everyone has their own thing that they've tried to do, and perhaps there's even people right now or even tomorrow that are going to do the same thing that you'll never hear about, no one cares about. And I've talked about this in other videos and everything else. So don't forget about these people. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. accept that. What people are afraid of is the time before a new equilibrium is established. And I've said this for the past 10 years on other topics. That's what people are afraid of. And this is why people are frantically trying to find hope and trying to save whatever it is now that they think is worth saving. But that's what people are scared of. So we're about halfway through all this. So let's just say there's another year and a half. And then, poof. So if I've been right, which apparently appears that I have been, and people have been saying all this time, then we only have another year and a half of this. And we all, not just me, we all pick up the pieces of our lives and rebuild. And always remember, getting all worked up, whether it be anger or fear or whatever. And a lot of people are not pacing themselves. And what I've been talking about in videos is this being a war of attrition, which means you have to endure. You have to endure for the long haul. And I've said repeatedly that we are repeating a literal 100-year pattern within the cycles of civilization. And this pattern appears to last around 3 years, give or take. Give or take months, not years. And we're about halfway through, meaning there's about another year and a half to endure all this. And that's where real hope
Resistance by those imposing is anticipated, thus use mainstream, alternative, and social media to deflate people. Protests, etc. are allowed and are tools for control. The majority of the people, socially conditioned, engineered, want, for example, mandates to remain. They protest, etc. as well. It's not only truther and freedom types. They have and are successful suing various governing bodies to reinstate, for example, mandates. Setting the above said aside, for the sake of argument, what truther and freedom types don't take into account are the liabilities of employers and businesses offering goods and services. For example, private insurance companies denying coverage, government insurance policies being breached, the threat of an employee and/or customer abusing the system, backlash from other employees and customers who want mandates, etc. Things are not as simple as protesting, etc. for change, as the opposition against the opposition are doing the same. Those imposing have generational commitment and have the monopoly on violence, while displaying vulgar acts of violence. They begin and end world wars. My ongoing question has been, what did the convoy accomplish? There are as many answers as there are people giving answer, because it's all about feelings and not facts. This is how you know the convoy agenda is working. Two of the biggest claimed accomplishments I hear are, it stopped the mandates, and it brought people together. I agree with the latter. It brought people together at best. However, I predicted when the first phase of everything being imposed would end a year and a half before the convoy in videos. Just like the marketing campaign of the movie Sound of Freedom, the convoy did the same type of thing. The word convoy meaning con, noun, deceptively to gain another's confidence, verb, swindle, manipulate, and the word voy in English slang for voyage. Many may wake up to one or several things only to slumber in something else while slumbering in everything else.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me, oh, when is it going to get easier? When you die.